Automation nation, automation nation, automation nation, around the nation, automation nation, automation nation, automation nation, around the nation, around the nation, around the nation. Welcome to the Automation Nation podcast, the show for business leaders, tech aficionados, and those who are just simply curious about where technology and business are going. Automation Nation is your gateway to understanding automation, AI, and the future of business. Don't get left behind. Tune in now and subscribe for more. Well, a fantastic time. And we like to call this entertainment. We like education and entertainment combined, Gary, because we know that if people are paying attention, there's a possibility that some keys could fall into the mind that they could use later. And my guest today, Gary Frey, who is the author of the new book, Silence the Imposter, and the owner of BGW, where he helps CPAs do amazing things. He is our guest today. And we're happy and excited to welcome the father, the husband, the leader, Gary Frey. Welcome to the show, my friend. Welcome to the Automation Nation podcast. Gary, how you doing today, sir?
Man, I'm even better now that I'm seeing and hearing you live real time, buddy. It's good to see you, Rob.
Oh, it's good to see you. And thank you for that inspirational quote. And I might use that, man, to play it every now and then when I need a pick me up, because we all need
There you go. Yeah, you can use that for free, man.
I appreciate that, man. So, folks, thank you for tuning in wherever you are. Be on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. Thank you. And by the way, if you have a question, no matter where you are, drop it in the comments. There are no dumb questions. The only dumb question is the one that's not asked that you should have asked that you needed the answer to. So
that's right.
Don't do that. Gary, before we kick the show off, this podcast is powered by Simply Automate. And we have a question we like to ask all of our guests. If you could simply automate one thing in your personal life, what would that be?
Oh, man. Well, I got to tell you, it would be very tempting to have somebody do all my posting, all my commenting, all my liking, and all my writing, but I'm not going to outsource any of that because I want to be authentically me, man. I know plenty of people that do outsource all those things, and it's not a condemnation on them. But man, I tell you, the amount of time I spend doing that is kind of arduous, but at the same time, and I've really wrestled with that, Rob. At the same time, I have had such meaningful conversations with people like you, a whole bunch of people. And I've had people reach out to me that I didn't know from Adam that said really amazing things. And honestly, I don't think I would have gotten that had I outsourced my voice to a VA or somebody else. So that's something that I find it to be very tempting, but I haven't done it.
I love the way you broke that down. It makes perfect sense. And to each his own, like you said, and that feels good to you, and you're doing a heck of a job with it.
Yeah.
And
I think that's right. You have to be true to yourself.
135%. Come on now. I tell you what, Gary, why don't you share with everyone just a little bit about who you are and Gary Frey, like what brought you to where you are today? I know we're going to get a little deeper into some other elements. Do that in 17 seconds.
Yeah, I was going to say we don't have enough time, but I'll encapsulate it in this one thing. Okay. I planned And God laughed about that.
So that man plans his course, huh?
Yeah, if it was up to me, I would have still been running an ad agency in Wichita, Kansas, where that license plate up there is.
Yeah.
But other things happen. And honestly, I got to tell you, some of the things I've been through, I wouldn't wish upon my worst enemies. And at the same time, I have seen things that I could have never imagined, met people that I would have never met had I stayed in Wichita, Kansas, So there you go.
There you go. There you go. And thank you for sharing that. And thanks for that comment, Wilton. We saw you there. Where's he at there? We got Wilton Rogers over here, my partner, CEO.
Oh man,
look at him dropping some comments in there.
I love Wilton Rogers.
Great guy, man. Great guy. And ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are, let us know if you're watching this live or you're watching a replay. I always like to find out if you're watching live or the replay. Here with Gary Frey, and he is going to share some insights with us. And before we go any further, I really want to know, like, what was your personal experience with imposter syndrome that inspired you to write a book called Silence the Imposter? Everyone and their mama and their mama's mama deals with this element, and it is a really funky feeling. It really is.
Yeah, it is.
So, how did your personal experience with this inspire you to write this book?
Well, okay, so the impetus for writing the book was a conversation that I had with a woman named Tana Green, one of the most accomplished CEOs that I've ever known, much less coached. And I was coaching her, I don't know, probably 6 years ago, something like that. And then we've just stayed really good friends. And I had her on our podcast, the Anything But Typical podcast. She was one of the first guests almost 4 years ago now. But we were having a conversation probably about a little over 2 years ago, between 2 and 3 years ago. And she said, Gary, I don't know what I'm doing, ashamedly. And I said, wait a minute. So I'm thinking, you have 10,000 W-2 employees. She's one of the most accomplished CEOs I've ever worked with. And she's telling me this. And I said, why would you say that, Tana? Wow. And she said, I only have a 2-year secretarial degree. And I'm like, And I said, Tana, you run circles around all the CEOs that I know that have advanced degrees. She's really that good. And now she has 12,000 W-2 employees. It's funny. I said, you know what? Wow. I think that is, I think that's imposter syndrome. And I just was introduced to that term a few years ago, even though it was coined in the 1970s by 2 female psychologists who actually observed this phenomenon among their high achieving female clients. Well, since then, they've determined that, about 70% of the population deals with it. And unless you're a hardcore narcissist or a sociopath or a psychopath, you probably don't. But
you're unaware of it. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And so then I realized, wait a minute, pretty much every CEO that's ever dropped their guard that I've either coached, I've walked alongside or served, where they dropped their guard with me, told me a very similar thing. Another guy he was my first client that I brought in 4.5 years ago to this CPA firm that I'm a partner in. I'm one of a few partners. And he told me a similar thing. And he had 2 companies at the time. He now has 3. And at that time, and still now today, he only works 10 hours a week in these companies. And they are good companies. They're not just little PP companies. He's making great money. And I said, Brent, why would you say that? Same thing. I don't have any formal education. I think he had high school and that was about it. And I said, do you realize that pretty much everybody I know wishes they had the life you do? That they could work 10 hours a week and go do whatever else they want to do the other 30 hours of the work week. If they're, I haven't had a 40-hour work week for a long time, but nonetheless, And so then I started realizing, wait a minute. And I had it ever since I was a little kid. I didn't know what it was called. People called it perfectionism. I felt that it was less thanism. I've always felt less than, never good enough, always striving and working my butt off to hit this ideal standard that, quite frankly, nobody can reach.
Nobody can reach. And it's interesting. It sounds like everyone was reaching for a standard that was set by someone else. So there's a standard we're reaching for, this educational thing. Like, so the CEO that had 10,000 employees, and then the gentleman you were speaking about, these are clearly successful and they're doing their thing. Clearly they are leading the pack, but they don't feel adequate because of this metric that they have in their mind.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because my mom read my book and she knows, my wife and children know it most intimately because they lived it. My mom saw it from afar, but they know it better than anybody. And she wondered, well, did we do something? Like, no, Mom, it wasn't you or Dad. Some of it was just being the oldest kid, I think, but just idealism, and I saw TV, and it wasn't like we watched a ton of TV, but I was drawn. I saw commercials and I thought that's the way life is supposed to be.
Right.
And
right.
I think I was probably hypersensitive because my father lost a leg to polio when he was 17. So all of my life, he drug his right leg through life. And in this little railroad town in Kansas where I grew up, everybody stared at him and they knew him because he was a very accomplished educator and he was a tough disciplinarian, but he was really a Mr. Holland's Opus, very inventive, very creative thinking educator and like an inventor. Like he did a lot of really cool things. But seeing people stare at my dad as he drug a leg and he refused to use crutches, he refused to be in a wheelchair until the last year of his life. He just refused. He refused to be in a handicapped parking space, and he's like, no, somebody that really needs it needed to park there, right?
I love his attitude. I love that attitude.
Not somebody that just wanted to park closer to the door at the gym, But so anyway, I think that was part of it, quite frankly, just seeing the stares. And as a kid, I just used to pray for being normal, like whatever that is, whatever that is. It's a setting on a dryer.
Yeah. Great. What give me 3 takeaways you're hoping readers will get from your book. Give me three takeaways you're hoping people, after they read your book, they'll take away. Let me get 3 of them.
One would be, if you suffer from it, that you have some practical tools that I learned through some crucible experiences in my life that can help you kind of avoid some of the decades of suffering that I did. And, I say suffering, it's an inner torment, I mean, it's not the same as somebody suffering from some debilitating disease or massive tragedy that hit them or their family, but this kind of albatross around your neck of always feeling less than, feeling like you can't admit to certain things because somebody's going to reject you. Like, man, if somebody can be free from that, or a second one would be, if you aren't suffering from it, if somebody else could be free from it. And I think the third thing would be, hope and inspiration and encouragement, because there are some practical things, and my crazy journey is going to be different than your crazy journey.
Right.
But hopefully there will be some sense of encouragement and hope, because I've been through some crazy stuff, but you probably have too. I think all of us, the longer we live, the likelihood is increased of going through some stuff that we did not ask for or order or wish upon ourselves or anybody else. But welcome to the human condition, and life is beautiful.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so those are some of the things that I would hope somebody takes away from it.
That's good. Those are some good takeaways. And if you can just for a second, just pause. A lot of times stillness helps out a lot. We got a lot of thoughts. With 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day now. Okay, 60 to 70,000 thoughts.
Yeah.
Just think of your mind like a highway, and 60 to 70,000 cars on the highway of your mind. It can be confusing, so it's kind of difficult and challenging to handle things. So creating that stillness. Did you have any practices that allowed you to help hone in and find that focusedness and ability to rise up?
Yeah, it's funny because ever since I was like a late sophomore, early junior in high school, I decided I was going to get really serious about my faith. All right, so that was good. That included praying, Bible reading, etc. However, your point of being still and all that, I even journaled, but when I lost everything, like when our world was completely crashing in 2009, and it was a hellacious time. Like I've been through partner embezzlement, I've been through some crazy stuff, but this made all of that look like child's play.
Mm-hmm.
And it was in the midst of devastation. $30 million worth of us got wiped out. Betrayal by a guy that I considered one of my closest friends, found out he was complete fraud. 30 million bucks get wiped out. I got 2 kids in college. I lose, like, I am just like wiped out financially. I still have my house, but everything else is decimated. And then we start getting lawsuits, like lawsuits off the chain. I have to shut down 90 offices, 11 offices, 90 people. And the board asked me to stay in the ring with them. And we had invested in 2 Ponzi's on top of this, like, holy freaking moly. It was just disastrous. And FINRA is investigating. And, fortunately, all of my emails and all of my correspondence and even the way I conducted was like straight down the middle of the fairway. But man, they were doing a dragnet. This is, after Madoff, and they were just hitting anybody. So people that I was on the phone with in jail, in federal penitentiaries, just awful, awful, awful. Wow. And I quite frankly, didn't want to wake up in the morning. I wasn't actively thinking about committing suicide, but I was genuinely disappointed when I woke up. And it was in the middle of that devastation that I learned the power of just being grateful, not for the stuff that we were going through. I couldn't deny it. I mean, it was like multiple times a week. It was like, okay, who's suing us now? Mm-hmm. And we didn't have any E&O or D&O insurance. Our CEO lied about that too. So we were just butt naked, hanging out there, swinging in the breeze. But it was in that moment, it was in those deep, dark moments that I had to learn how to be thankful and find gratitude in the midst of it, like despite the circumstances. And that has been a powerful thing. And that's actually a weapon that I talk about in this book. It's weapon number 5, and that's a gratitude journal. 3 entries in it daily, like 3. Just, I'm grateful for ... followed by a thought or a prayer. And, being kind of very judicious about that, it just focuses, because I love running, man. I love to run hard and fast. I like lots of activity. I like all of that, but man, I have to get quiet in the morning. That's when I read, that's when I pray, that's when I do my gratitude journal. And it's not like I spend hours a day doing that, but I do spend some dedicated time doing that. And it's been a really important thing.
Well, that's big. I'm glad you said it. And it's not necessarily about being religious, everyone. It's not. It's just about having that connection to gratitude. Like if you find your faith through religion, then that's fantastic. But gratitude, I believe, like you said, Gary, is the beginning of everything. You can't even operate within your own religion effectively if you're not grateful. So gratitude. I think Les Brown said, gratitude determines your attitude, which determines your altitude. I never forgot that. Gratitude, that's good. Attitude, altitude. And so I appreciate you saying that, and I appreciate your experience, because that is a heck of an. I knew you were on the RPA show last year. We had you on the podcast, and you did share a bit about that, but it didn't resonate with me just now the way you just shared it. That's heavy.
Yeah.
And speaking of issues and solving problems, what are some common challenges? Because you help CPAs get through a lot of their own problems. What are some common challenges you're seeing CPAs face, and like, how do you help them overcome these obstacles?
Well, what's funny is, so actually, yeah, I'm an owner in this CPA firm. I'm not a CPA. I'm not a finance guy. I don't want to be. I would be terrible. Yes, Jane, resilience. Yes, resilience. I've got a story about that.
Thank you, Jane.
I'll go into that.
Okay.
But I was brought into this CPA firm because we had a common mission, which is mine is I want to make a positive difference in the lives of others. I've run 4 companies. I've been an owner of 5 now. And I love helping privately held businesses grow. I've been in 2 Fortune 500 companies, but I don't want to be back in corporate America, man. I had some good experiences in it, but you couldn't pay me enough to go back there. There's something about the fabric of America being tied to entrepreneurs that are willing to risk it, willing to put their own lives on the line, willing to sacrifice their own salaries to make payroll, which I've done multiple times. There's something about that, because that is the fabric of our country, I believe. And I believe that as the leaders go, so does the company, but so do the individuals and families and communities, which is why I'm so passionate about. So I actually have been coaching CEOs and management teams of high growth companies really since late 1990s. 1998 was my first assignment, even when I was working 60 and 70-hour weeks at Bank of America. I was asked to come in and help a friend of mine that I had spent a lot of money with because I was a client, and they had multiple cities that they were in, and they wanted some clarity, and they needed somebody outside the jar to help them read the label. And that's where I got going into it. So I'm super passionate about that. And our CPA firm asked me to come in and bring my coaching practice and also run business development for them. So I do all of those things. And I've also helped kind of differentiate us. Like, we had differentiation, but like clarify that. So my branding background long ago, when I was a designer, I had a lot of branding experience. So that doesn't just go away. But I like helping our company grow too. So I can't speak to other CPA firms. I can tell you this: I see a lot of really crappy work from a lot of other CPA firms. And if we don't follow our processes, we're just as crappy. So I'm just going to be honest about that. But when we follow our processes, we just kick some butt. So helping owners, like we say, we want to help you save money, make money, stay out of trouble, and have fun. All of those things, we just focus on that. And all of those 3 or 4 aspects have different parts to them. And so if somebody's really needing like tax strategy, I bring in the right team to do that. If they just need audit help or bookkeeping help, I help find them. And even if that's not us, ultimately, I'll get them connected to somebody else with no strings, no fee charged. I don't get any kickbacks from anybody else I refer business to. And I refer a lot of business out when it's not in our sweet spot. But that's what I love to do. I love to help solve problems, connect good people to good people. So I just like to keep it simple, man. I'm a simple dude from Kansas.
I like that. Speaking of simple, it's time for our second simply question of the day. Okay. So, powered by Simply Automate, question number 2. What's one thing you would like to simply automate in your business life, Gary? If you could. Now, this is like this is magic wand time, okay? Guys, this is magic wand time. Anything you could think of, what would it be?
Well, I can already tell you that, because we're going to finally engage you guys to do some of that, because we have a lot of redundant and repetitive things that we do in processing returns, in obtaining information from our clients and getting it through the system, that we could deploy our people into things that are more creative, more mind challenging, and a higher use than just repeating some of those rinse and repeat kind of cycles. So that's where actually we're going to begin with you guys. So we're very excited about it. And I know we've been talking about it for, too many months. And part of it has just been because of how crazy busy we have been. But you've got Adam Boatsman, who started our firm. You've got his attention, you got mine, and we kind of drive a lot of the innovation within the company. So hopefully that answers.
That's good. It does. It does. And we're excited to help. We're here to help. And listen, I'm really excited, Gary, about what technology is doing. There's a lot of advancements that are happening, and when you implement intelligent automations, it's key that we say this word intelligent, folks, because you can put automation, you can automate a broke process and be a nightmare. But
yeah,
with the right automation, oh my goodness, the amount of time and stress that I've seen that it saves people and the things that they're doing and the companies they're working for. I just think it's amazing. It's about as amazing. Like if someone was trying to understand it from micro to macro level, we're talking macro. On a micro level, to understand it, just take a look at ChatGPT and where it is right now in regards to like the thoughts that you can create, how quickly and how intelligent you can create a thought, and from how many different reference points. And just go back 5 years and you couldn't do that. And so we're advancing super quick. So I think it's very important. And speaking of that, this is a big one because we're going to turn these into quotables, by the way. So
all right,
this
cool.
this nugget of wisdom here, I want you to, what's something that our audience can remember about automation, about automation and business in regards to what you're thinking about, your perspective about the future, where we are now, and what you think that it needs to be done.
So I'm going to start with business first, because that's what I know best. And that is, management always sets the tone. Always, always, always. And if there's not health, and there's not purpose, and there's not meaning, and there's not mutual respect from the top of the organization, if you got chaos moving, you have a bad culture, sorry, leader, it's your fault. Sorry, but that's the truth. What you tolerate is what you get, and what you expect is what you get, and what you lead by example is what you get. So I would say you can't substitute that. There's a human component that has to be, and it has to start with heart. Automation cannot replicate heart and purpose. So that's why I love Simon Sinek. I love, start with the why.
Start with the why.
Start with the why, and go back to the why, and ask yourself, because we could get off track super easy. But then what I would say is, with regard to automation, find the stuff that you love to do. Stick with that as much as possible. Delegate the stuff you don't love to do to others on your team that they love to do that. And then find the stuff that nobody loves to do, that doesn't take as much creative brain power, but is repetitive in nature, and then automate that. See what you can do to clean that up, so that you can be spending more time in the stuff that makes you come alive. I call it your thrive zone. And here's the thing, what I've found, and it's not strengths and weaknesses. I created this T-chart when I had to leave my own ad agency in 1994. I was only 32 years old at the time, and I caught my partner and his hands in the financial cookie jar twice. And I knew I had to leave my own ad agency that had my name on the door. So I either destroyed him or I destroyed my name, and neither were going to be good options for me. I didn't want to destroy him, and I didn't want to destroy my name. So I had to
Right.
get really serious about what made me come alive. And at 61, I know a whole lot more, but I still knew enough at age 32, the kind of stuff that just drained my tank. And here's the thing, what I've found, and I use this with all of the people that I coach. I've taken our entire company through this, and we hire based on this. Like we use this tool to get people, like, just be honest. We want to know what makes you come alive. Yeah, the job description is the job description, but where possible, we'd like to move responsibilities around the team in the places that make them come alive. But what I've found is you may have strengths. We've all been taught, oh, concentrate on your strengths. Well, you might be really good at pivot tables, and I know CPAs that are really good at it. I know one illustrator who's one of the most fantastic illustrators I've ever worked with. He was a CPA, and he worked for Cessna Aircraft in Wichita, Kansas. He was really good at it, but he hated it. Well, what? You're really good at it, but you hate it? Yeah. Why did you go into it? Oh, I was told I was good in math. You know, my parents said you need to do a stable job. That's a good stable job, whatever. Sometimes maybe you've just had enough. Like you were really good. You loved it at one point, but life changed and you just wanted to explore other things. Like you're just done with it. Pay attention to that. That's in the wither column. You want to get as much of that junk off of your wither column as possible and focus as much of your time in your thrive column. Yeah, we still have to take out the trash. Yeah, we still have to clean toilets, all of that. That's still called life. It's not vacation. But if you can move that stuff off your wither column and move it out of your life into somebody's life that actually loves to do that. And then if you can't find anybody that loves to do that, find a way to automate it, if possible.
I like that. That's good. That's a good way to narrow it down. Gary Frey. You would think his name was Gary Frey when you looked at it, F-R-E-Y. That's what I called him the first time I ever talked to him. And then he told me he was Frey. And I never forgot it. I never forgot it because you have this wonderful thing on LinkedIn called Grateful Fridays. What is it called exactly? I'm Grateful for Fridays with Gary Frey. Is that what it is?
I'm totally grateful. It's Freyday, Friday. Like you can't forget it.
So, I won't forget.
Totally grateful it's Friday.
Can't forget that. TGIF. Gary Frey, I appreciate you.
I did that because
I wanted
to honor other people. There's something beautiful about honoring other people. And I thought, man, I would really like to do that. And this would be a kind of a funny way of, reemphasizing how my name is pronounced. But that was secondary or, down the line. I really wanted to honor other people. And I thought, I wonder if I could do a year, and then I started writing them down and I had over 110. And I'm like, well, I got 2 years worth. And now it's almost been 3 of people that I'm grateful for that have made a positive difference in my life. And there continues to be people like, a month ago, I had a torn retina. It wasn't that I was lifting weights or anything that morning or day. I was actually on one of these, a LinkedIn Live. And for some reason, I had these black squiggles go across my left eye. And then by that evening, it was clouding up. And the next morning, I could hardly see I could hardly see my hand. It was just a frosted glass shadow. Is very strange. Well, I am grateful for Dr. Tucker, because I had to have emergency eye surgery that day. I am grateful for that guy. I wish I didn't have to go meet him, and it wasn't fun.
Right.
It actually hurt, but what he was doing with this laser, but I'm grateful I can see. And so I just thought, man, let's just do that. So yeah, that's my TGIF. Totally grateful it's Friday.
Oh, that's good. That's good. That's good. Now, Gary, I have a lot of things I want people to do. I want them to get your book, Silence the Imposter. So we're going to put that in the link. But I want folks to know how they can connect with you. Oh, here we go. You might not be able to see mine. You might be able to see mine through the green screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Anything but typical podcast. I want them to subscribe and tune into that because you have some amazing guests on that show. Gary, you have an inspiring life, and I love the way you carry yourself and just how you show up. You are authentic. I have an authentic radar. You know, it's called when you meet somebody, you can kind of tell instantly who they are, if they are who they say they are. And everyone is not always able to do that based off some circumstances. But you, my friend, do a fantastic job. So I want you to let folks know on how they can get in contact with you and where they can get your book and anything else you want them to know. Let's do it.
Yeah, so you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I've had my 30,000 connection limit. So, but follow me and I'll follow you. I've got a little website, Gary D. Frey. D is in David, but that's not my middle name. GaryDFrey.com. And the book is on Amazon. It's just called Silence the Imposter. 7 Weapons for Silencing Imposter Syndrome. And I hope it blesses you. Even my neighbor, he came up and stopped me this weekend. And he said, Gary, and he's from Brazil. He said, I had no idea. He goes, this is really a good book. I really enjoy it. And I said, well, thank you, Rafa. So it's been fun to hear from people that know me and people that don't know me and their comments about that, which is really cool. And that's, again, what you said at the very beginning. I just want to hopefully bless somebody else, inspire somebody else, and give them some practical ways to punch imposter syndrome in the mouth, silence it. And I'm not a very violent person, but against that debilitating, nagging voice that is just a condemning voice that always makes you feel less than, punch that sucker in the mouth.
Punch that sucker in the mouth. I like it. And then keep it moving, folks. You're listening to and watching Automation Nation podcast. Gary, thanks a lot for being here, man. Appreciate you.
Yeah, man. It's a blessing.
Everybody, until next time. See you, man.
See you.